This is our COVID Roundup and CDC update for August 30th, 2024. Jumping down to the CDC's NWSS map, we see that those at or near the highest levels they've recorded throughout the entire pandemic has dropped from 28% to 24%. However, the wastewater facilities at very high levels, the orange and red here, has increased to 69%. When we jump to the CDC's COVID variant tracking, we see that KP3.1.1 has increased to about 42% of all variants in proportion. This is followed by variant KP2.3 at about 15%, KP3 family at about 14%, and LB1 at about 13.5%. When we look over to Mike Honey's analysis in the KP3.1.1 variants globally, we see that they've overtaken the flirt variants, this green that's spiking. So this is the defluke variants of KP3.1.1, while the flirt ones are decreasing, where globally the KP3.1.1 variant has increased globally in variance in proportion to greater than 50% of all lineages, which makes the most likely thing you would have been infected with if you had a recent COVID infection, where in general KP3.1.1 has been increasing in all countries. Notably in Spain, it's hit 80% of variants by proportion there, where in Denmark and the UK, they're having some decreasing levels of that variant by proportion. So perhaps we have a new, more contagious variant emerging in those regions. We'll have to keep an eye on it to see if anything pops up. Now switching over to some positive news, when we look to our proxy measurement of the Walgreens COVID Positivity Index, we're finally starting to see a decrease in those test positivity levels, where it was sitting around 40% and now it's decreased to about 35%. Next, switching over to our New York State wastewater surveillance map. Here we have a little bit of bad news, and I'm glad I mentioned the drop in the sewer sheds last week, as it's been over a week with 2 updates, so it looks like New York has officially lost 33 COVID wastewater facility test sites, which is another sign of the degradation in our last COVID surveillance programs. But to dive into the data for today, as a reminder, anything that is dark blue is low levels of COVID in the wastewater, anything that is light blue is moderate levels, and anything from yellow to bright red is high levels of COVID in the wastewater. As of today, about 98% of all reporting wastewater facilities are reporting at the highest levels. A potential positive note in New York is that about 20 wastewater facilities have dropped to the lowest of the high levels. Next, moving on to wastewater scan and the 28 reporting facilities to California. And last week I mentioned seeing potential good signs of decreasing levels. Here we see 3 great signs. At the lowest levels we are having decreases. The bulk of the moderate levels are having decreases as well. So it seems we have just passed our peak and we could be on a downward trajectory. But despite this, it's important to note that we're still at very high levels, and that because it took so long for our summer wave to peak, essentially by the end of August, we will only have about a month of reprieve until it starts heading back up around mid-September, early October, for the start of the winter wave. Next, looking over to the 148 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan in the US, we are also seeing that we're clearly starting a downward trend. How long this will last, it's unclear, but at least we're starting to see some positive signs. However, again, despite us starting a downward trajectory, it's still important to note that we're still at very high levels.